Malaysia opposed Israel's admission to the Asian Development Bank, ADB, which, by the way, just for your knowledge, it was set up way back in 1966 as a means of establishing prosperity among Asia-Pacific countries while eradicating hardcore poverty. Now, interestingly enough, Malaysia was the only country out of the 69 member countries who opposed Israel joining the ADB. Other Muslim-majority nations such as Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Bangladesh, Brunei, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Maldives, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkey did not oppose this. So why is there a difference in the global Muslim world attitude towards Israel as opposed to Malaysia?
I would say one factor is that Malaysia is a democracy. So the decision makers have to respect the general sentiment and the public interest and public opinion. And if you have a poll, the majority of the Malaysian people do not want to see Israel, gain more grounds.
Definitely.
In the case of many other OIC states, we can have a different discussion about whether they are democratic or not. I think democracy in the Muslim world is very, very weak. In our think tank, we actually have an initiative focused on democracy and transparency initiative. And I can tell you that our political institutions across the OIC are not that democratic. So public opinion is not always taken into account when they make their foreign policy. But in Malaysia, it is taken into account, which is good. That's one. Number two, the Malaysian decision makers, the Malaysian political elite is ideologically pro-Palestine. And you don't need to, search for a lot of evidence. You can have a brief conversation with any Malaysian politician, minister, member of parliament. Most of them feel very strongly for Palestine and would like to see an end to the ongoing injustice in Palestine. So they certainly won't give platform for Israel anywhere. In the case of many other Muslim countries, there is a strong feeling for Palestine, even amongst decision makers, but it's about priorities. It's about maybe cold calculations. Sometimes we're getting this economic interest. Let's give them this. In the case of the Abrahamic Accords, for instance, in the Trump era, several Muslim countries normalized with Israel because of considerations that have nothing to do with the public opinion, that have nothing to do with even the national interests. It was more towards regime survival. I'll give an example, won't be controversial. Sudan, for instance. Sudan went through a military coup, public unrest first, then military coup, then a crisis. Now it's embroiled in civil war. The military regime back then, during the Trump era, was, of course, number one, under pressure to open up to the Western world and to work with Israel. So the generals thought that in order to stay in power, the best way is to talk to Israel. Does that reflect the sentiment? No, the Sudanese people are amongst the most pro-Palestine, anti-Israel communities in the whole of Africa. I've been to Sudan and I've seen how strong they feel for Palestine, but nobody consulted them. The same applies to almost every other Muslim country that normalized relations with Israel, with, of course, a few exceptions. I don't want to start mentioning countries because that will become more controversial and you will have people complaining.